A few months ago, I dropped a video about Days Gone 2, and the response from each and every one of you was pretty insane. I do read every single comment on every single video, and trust me, I get it. You guys overwhelmingly want this story to continue. Honestly, so do I. Welcome to the channel, everybody. Jimmy or Chaos, and today we're going to do a follow-up with all the new leaks, rumors, and news around Days Gone 2. We're going to figure out if there's still a chance a sequel could actually happen, and I know most of you are in agreement with me. Why is it not happening? Even though right now it's not looking great, stick around. I've got a wild theory about Days Gone 2 possibly being a next-gen build launch title. It sounds crazy, but we're going to talk about it. So make sure you guys drop a like, make sure you're subscribed as always, and the community wants more. They do. I mean, I want to acknowledge you guys. The Days Gone community. In the last video, the positivity was off the charts. I saw hundreds of comments from fans begging for a sequel, reminiscing about Deacon St. John's Journey. Basically saying, Sony, take my money. Give us Days Gone 2. The fan demand is real, and the fact that it's being ignored is preposterous. There's even a massive online petition right now that's gathered nearly 250,000 signatures from people who want Days Gone 2 to happen. That is 240,000 plus fans all united for a sequel. If I can find that petition, I'll link it in here if you're not on there and you want to go sign it. So when Days Gone Remastered dropped on the PS5 earlier this year with that Broken Road DLC, it stirred up a hornet's nest. It stirred up the community even more. Yes, it was awesome to go revisit Oregon in native 4K with better lighting and new modes. It was only a $10 upgrade. I don't think that's a bad deal. But let's be honest with each other. A remaster isn't what we were truly thirsty for. As one gaming outlet put it, a remaster will never quench the thirst of the fans. We want a new story. We want new story content, not just an enhanced version of the 2019 game. In fact, many of you said the remaster, while appreciated, just made you want a full sequel even more. Some fans on Reddit flat out called it a cash grab, and they urged people to buy it anyway just to prove to Sony there's a market for Days Gone 2. The community was and still is loud and clear. Give us Days Gone 2. You wrote such an amazing story with characters in Days Gone. We want it to continue. And you know what? The numbers back up how special this game is to the fans. Despite mixed critic reviews at launch, who cares? Days Gone gained a sort of cult classic status over time. It sold impressively. It reportedly sold around 8 million copies, which is on par for some of PlayStation's bigger hits like Horizon Zero Dawn. Now on PC, it's really popular to this day. Over 58,000 Steam user reviews with 92% of those being positive. And there's thousands of players still roaming the Farewell Wilderness right now. That's not nostalgia, people. That is an active, passionate player base in 2025. So if anyone at Sony were wondering if people care, they do. And if anyone at Sony is looking and listening, which they should be, it's right in front of your face, loud and proud and clear. Now, the grim reality so far is that Ben Studios' official stance, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't want to pour cold water on the hype, but I do want to be real with you guys and transparent. And so far, Ben Studio and Sony have been saying no to Days Gone 2. In fact, last year, Ben's community manager, Kevin McAllister himself, took to X to definitively squash the sequel rumors. Who does that? I mean, he straight up apologized to fans for the false hope and poor information being spread by others and confirmed the studio was working on a new IP instead. His message to all of us was essentially, I know you want it, but it's time to move on. I have so many things to unpack from that. I don't think that's from Kevin's mouth himself. I don't think he has a choice. I would presumably think that he's probably sad about that. I mean, you have the community manager, the people that wrote the story, created the game. They see the community. They know it's a huge hit. And in a world where new IPs can literally bust on day one and be deleted from existence in a couple months, I mean, Anthem, Concord, you guys know the drill. Why would you not go back and give the fans something they wanted off of something you already created that was a success? That, to me, is the biggest no-brainer move you can do. So there has to be more on the back end or behind the curtains that's going on here. What made it worse was, that false hope he mentioned was coming from former developers of Days Gone. For instance, John Garvin, the original creative director, writer, has been talking about Days Gone and how it was intended to be a trilogy. Even revealed he worked on Days Gone 2's pitch for weeks. He completed with a script draft, a new map, and concept art. He honestly believed in the sequel. He did. But Garvin also told us not to expect anything soon. He said he wasn't at the studio when Sony shot down Days Gone 2, and he's not holding his breath for it to ever get made. In his words, maybe in a couple years when the IP is gathering dust and Sony's sure they're done with it, they license it to another dev, but again, not holding my breath. That sounds pretty bad. He even mentioned he'd love to write a graphic novel or something just to give fans closure on the cliffhanger. If you know, you know. If a game sequel never happens, and the guy who created the story is talking like that, it is an uphill battle. Meanwhile, Jeff Ross, Days Gone's game director, who also left Ben, confirmed that Days Gone 2 never got the green light from Sony. He said, never say never, but at the time, it definitely wasn't happening. Now, we found out via reports that Ben did pitch a sequel to Sony shortly after the first game's release, but Sony turned it down internally. Supposedly, the higher-ups at that time viewed Days Gone as a one-off, and they weren't happy with its development cycle and the critical reception, even though it sold 8 million copies. So instead of a sequel, Sony had Ben start working on a brand new AAA project, a live service multiplayer IP. Sounds like so much fun, right? And I just picture these Sony upper executives. They probably have never played a video game in their life. But now here's where things take a twist. Earlier this year, Sony canceled that secret live service game that Ben had been working on. They reportedly laid off 30% of Ben's staff in the process. About 40 people were let go, which is a big hit to that studio. Ben's studio even put out a note apologizing to fans for the lack of news and said any real updates on their next project would come directly from them when the time is right. There was nothing about Days Gone 2, and at that point, it really felt like the sequel's prospects went from slim to almost non-existent. The studio higher-ups were basically telling you and me, we love your passion, but we've got to move on. On top of that, a lot of the important people who made Days Gone, they're gone. No pun intended there. From Ben to John Garvin, Jeff Ross, gone. Other veterans have moved on to different studios as well. Fans have worried that even if a sequel happened now, that original creative team that created the magic, it's not there anymore. So could a new team capture the same magic? Probably not. It's a valid concern if you ask me. There's even rumors that Ben might get reorganized or turned into a support studio if things don't turn around, given Sony's recent aggressive strategy with underperforming teams. None of that sounds good for our dream of Days Gone 2. So yeah, as of right now, the official word is there's no sequel, time to move on. It's like every signal from Sony and Ben in 2024 was pointing to Days Gone 2 is dead. But, and this is the big but, things can change in the gaming industry in the blink of an eye, and things have been changing. If you stuck around, here's where we try to slide to the positive. After the cancellation of Ben's multiplayer project and the release of Days Gone Remastered, a lot of industry chatter popped up suggesting that Sony might be rethinking things. Several gaming news outlets and insiders have hinted that the circumstances have changed. They might have pushed Sony to reconsider a Days Gone sequel. There was an article that speculated with Ben's slate wiped clean, no active project as of right now, and the remastered edition reigniting fan interest, Sony could greenlight Days Gone 2 development soon, or they may have already done it. Take it with a grain of salt, because it's not coming from Sony officially, but the logic is there. It's sound. Huge fan demand plus no current project equals why not give the people what they want? It's basically the argument many of you have made in the comments on my videos and on Reddit, and it's now echoed by analysts. So even the Times of India, of all places, ran a piece listing reasons why Days Gone 2 might finally get a green light after the remaster's strong reception. I'm telling you right now, when mainstream media is talking and chirping, the noise is getting loud and people are listening that matter. So there have been other encouraging signs. The Days Gone Remastered launch was pretty successful in the terms of community engagement. It got people talking about Deacon's story again in a big way. Fans on social media were tagging PlayStation saying, look how much we love this. Use this momentum to make Days Gone 2. We saw threads on the Days Gone subreddit predicting that Sony cannot ignore this. One Reddit post from earlier this year, right after the live service game was axed, basically said, Sony spent years and money on that canceled project. Maybe now they'll play it safe and return to an established, loved IP. What better choice than Days Gone 2? I mean, that sentiment had a lot of upvotes. People were literally saying, we're so back when the remaster was confirmed and the other game got canned. It's almost like the fandom collectively smelled blood in the water in a good way and thought, this is our chance to make Sony notice us. There's also the financial angle here we haven't talked about. Sony's been big on chasing huge live service hits lately, but they've also seen some stumbles. Even Ben's project got canceled. Meanwhile, single-player story games, think of Ghost of Tsushima, God of War. They are dominating sales, and they're getting awards. Days Gone, despite the bumps, did make money, and it found a huge audience over time. Some commenters Her commentators have argued that Sony would be stupid not to capitalize on that IP. By all the metrics, it has a loyal fan base willing to pony up for a sequel, especially now. The iron's hot again with the remaster. One article pointed out, now that the unnecessary live service project is scrapped, this is the perfect opportunity for Ben to focus on the thing the community wants. I mean, that's hard to disagree with. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. There's nothing confirmed. We haven't heard anything from Sony about Days Gone 2 being in development, but the fact that insiders keep dropping hints to this day and speculative reports keep giving us the idea that the game is alive in conversation, I'm in it. I've even heard whispers, unverified of course, so don't quote me on this, that Sony higher-ups have been impressed by the persistent fan outcry. You've got Days Gone 2 hashtags, the petition, 250,000 people, the constant media articles. It's moving the needle. It is. I mean, take this as a rumor. It suggested Sony had internally discussed a Days Gone revival as of mid-2025, possibly to rebuild some goodwill with core gamers. Now, that's wishful thinking, I understand, but I'm going to go with the you never say never, just like Jeff Ross said. That's where I'm going to be. The ball is in Sony's court. Ben Studio hasn't announced what their next project is. They could be secretly prototyping something new as we speak. I don't know. Could it be Days Gone 2? Probably not, but who knows? There's no evidence. But the PlayStation 5? It's midlife cycle. We're already talking about the PlayStation 6. That's what I told you guys in the beginning. Yeah. What if they're holding Days Gone 2 for a next-gen strategy? Specifically, there's a theory floating around that Days Gone 2 could end up being a PlayStation 6 launch title, or at least a major next-gen exclusive. Sounds crazy. It doesn't sound crazy. I think it makes sense. We know that Ben Studio's next big game, whatever it was, is gone. We know it's canceled. So what are they working on? I mean, they may not have another hit till the 2030s. Given that the PS5 launched in 2020, we're past midlife. The PS6 is right around the corner, probably 2027, 2028. This is perfect. Make it exclusive if you have to. I hate exclusive games, but whatever. Whatever you have to do to justify looking in the mirror to make this happen. Give it the full big budget treatment, plenty of development time, and this could position the sequel to be ready around the launch of the PS6 or shortly after. It would honestly be kind of poetic. The first Days Gone pushed the PS4 to its limits. A sequel could be designed to showcase the power of the new console. I know, it's pure speculation. There is no secret document from Sony saying we'll save Days Gone 2 for the PS6, but it is a fun thought to think about, and I actually think it kind of makes sense, to be honest with you. We'll see. I mean, they have to be aware, right? They really, really do have to be aware. Before we leave, I want to indulge you guys and myself for just a second. What could Days Gone 2 be like? So, there's been lots of leaks, hints from developers, fan theories, but I'm going to kind of sum it up for you. Story continuation here. The first game ended on let's just call it a cliffhanger. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but if you know, O'Brien, you know, a sequel would almost certainly pick up with that ending. One likely direction is seeing Deacon and Sarah trying to not just survive, but maybe fix the world. So imagine them working to find a cure for the freaker virus or uncovering the truth behind the pandemic. Jeff Ross once said that his vision for a sequel would explore what happens next after the apocalypse. Well, that makes sense for a sequel, doesn't it? Society not magically returning to normal, but the continued struggle of rebuilding or evolving in the freaker-infested world. He even hinted that in his pitch, Deacon and Sarah had reunited, which we saw, but now they weren't exactly living happily ever after. So there's new tension, bigger threats. And one of the former directors even teased a concept almost Avengers-like deal where remnants of the government or military would actually play a role in multiple story threads could converge into something epic. We might see Nero, that research organization, step up and be the saviors or be the ultimate antagonist. What tech would we see? John Garvin said he wanted this to be a trilogy. I mean, a trilogy. So there is so much to tell here. I mean, instead of being in Oregon, we could go to a new region. We could definitely get out there and find other survivor groups or cults just beyond the Rippers. The world is literally ripe with it, and maybe new characters. Maybe parts of the game could have us step into Sarah's shoes. Imagine a chapter where you're exploring a research facility as her and use brains instead of brawn. Would give us a fresh perspective. Maybe flashback missions as Iron Mike in his younger days, or even new characters who would join the story. There's so many things we could do along with gameplay upgrades. Come on, this could be on the PS6. We could have co-op mode. Think Left 4 Dead, but on a Days Gone level, and hordes, bigger, smarter, crazier, increased horde size, freakers everywhere. I mean, picture 500 freakers charging at you at once. Picture adaptive AI, maybe different types of freakers coordinating attacks. Yes, all of that. Every single bit of that would be crazy. I talked about new enemy types. Evolved Freakers would be a wild way to ramp it up as well. My point is, and I know I'm on a tangent now, fans are hungry. Things have changed in 2025, and it could possibly still happen. If I get anything new that I feel is viable for a video, I'll get with you guys. I hope you have a great day. I'm going to read the comments, of course, and I'll see you soon.